This is the Discuss Metal Podcast with Joel Lauver of Trenches. Hosted by Dan Terry. Presented by discussmetal.com.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Discuss Metal Podcast. My name is Dan. I will be your host for this evening. And with me tonight is Joe Lauver from Trenches. How you doing tonight, man?
Pretty good. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty well.
Awesome.
Staying inside, staying away from everybody as much as I possibly can.
That's right.
But one of the reasons that I wanted to pull you on tonight was you had just recently posted in the Labeled Podcast group on Facebook about some stuff going on with the band, kind of an update. I think for anybody that hasn't been following the band for a while, a lot of people were surprised. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're still here. We're still doing stuff, or we're trying to do stuff." And so I was like, "Oh man, I should reach out and have a conversation." But we will definitely get into that a little bit later. But I kind of want to just shift the focus onto you and get some information out there that maybe some people don't know. And so I'll start with because I know you're involved in like a lot of stuff other than just Trenches, So I guess I'll just start off easy and just where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Shipshewana, Indiana. It's a really small community there. It's actually small enough to be a town still. It's not a city. So I grew up in a class of like 84 people. We have 40% Amish, so I did a lot of dodging what we called road apples from horses. So I drove around a lot there. So I got into guitar and music and stuff in band in school. In like 5th grade, I started testing out instruments that I wanted to play, and I chose drums. And I had I think I tested well on most of the instruments, but rhythm was one thing I had a problem with. So naturally, Mom and Dad, get me a drum set.
Right.
But yeah, I played drums for a few years. I wasn't very good at that. I could maybe get through something like the Weezer Blue album or something like that. But I moved on to guitar at age 14 and just kept playing and playing guitar after that. Stuck with that. When I was 17 years old, I tried to start recording music with my dad's barbershop quartet's PA system.
Oh, wow.
Setting that up to just make my friends band together. We were called the Yellow Llama Clan. Thought that was a really awesome name back then. But yeah, we did some recordings. I got really into the whole process of trying to capture sound. It grew exponentially from there. In 2000, I started recording bands for free using those techniques, and then eventually bought a sound card made for the computer to do these things, and started working with Pro Tools. And then started producing bands from that point on. That was my thing. Did that for like a decade straight in Indianapolis. Did a lot of hardcore bands and indie rock, stuff like that. Met the guys in Haste the Day. I used to play in a band with Jason from that band that we were called the Unraveling Complex, which then became the Bowels of Judas, and they did some good stuff.
I remember the Bowels of Judas, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they were an awesome band. Haste the Day was awesome. A lot of good guys that were all good friends with everybody in an intrinsic circle there. And so I knew Jimmy, and he was going to leave Haste the Day to commit to his marriage, and that was going to be the end of that band. And we didn't really think he was going to do something else after that. And he approached me one day and asked if we could work on something, and that was the birth of Trenches right there. That was like mid 2006, and we started making it happen in 2007.
That's cool. Yeah, it was a minute ago. I remember. I remember that record just kind of appearing out of nowhere. I think with me being kind of a solid state tooth and nail kid, so to speak, at that time. I remember it being kind of the most different thing that I think I'd ever heard on that label. As far as the sound, like still heavy, but kind of more in that like Cult of Luna type of slower kind of jammy music. And no, that was super, super cool, because there really wasn't anything out there at that time that was kind of in that genre for that particular audience,
Man, well, it's awesome you say Cult of Luna, man. I love that band a lot.
Well, yeah, because like I was listening to, excuse me, I was one of those kids that, youth group and stuff like church, everything was related to church in some way, and so I have to listen to all the solid state bands, but I'm at the same time I'm listening to stuff like Cult of Luna and ISIS and some of that more post metal stuff, and so it was really, really, really cool to hear something like that come out on solid state, but if I can rewind the clock back a little bit, we'll get back to this because I got a lot more to say about Trenches. But there's what got you into harder music?
Man,
go deep, yeah.
Let's go deep. So I was 12 years old, and it was over. My mom's friend had a son, and he was a bit older than me, and we were over there one night, and he would let me just play Nintendo in his room. When I was over there, so he was out and I was playing Nintendo, and I saw some Metallica records sitting there, and I was like, oh man, I haven't heard this band, but I've heard all about them, and I've seen those t-shirts and all that, and I put on the Black album. And so I was hooked right then when I heard like I guess it was the aggressive tones from palm muting and like fast double bass.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that before. So it didn't matter who was playing it. I was just like enamored. That was an amazing sound. Just the velocity and like rawness and the intensity that was behind the music. I'd never heard anything like it, because I would just hear country music from my mom and Journey and Pink Floyd from my dad, Kansas, a lot of classic rock tunes that were pretty awesome. Glad I was raised that way,
Sure. Well, yeah, that was my whole thing. It's like, how do you go from growing up in a small town that's, with a large Amish population, how does one get into more extreme music? And it's fascinating because it almost seems like that happens more in like more isolated in environments. That's where some of the most creative music comes from. So we start with Metallica, and then where do we go from Metallica?
Oh, wow. What a path. I found bands like Motley Crue and like Guns N' Roses. And then it moved from that sort of like the Columbia House adventure of finding music. Yeah. I don't know if you ever joined one of those CD booklet groups that you would order like 9 of them. Well, me and my friend found ways to scam them and just get them over and over again.
I was just going to ask that. I was like, did you figure out how to rip them off? Like you just keep the ones that you want and then send the other ones back?
Unapologetically figured it out. But yeah, so it was interesting getting new music and seeing like what, I guess even at that time being that young, it was almost like, what am I not allowed to listen to also? And seeing what I could get away with, just to hear why it was so controversial, Sure. You're always curious. But yeah, I think I found punk rock pretty soon after that. And the 90s alternative grunge, like all kind of came at the same time. Yeah, definitely I was a big Nirvana fan, heavily influenced by bands like Deftones and Shiner, Quicksand, Failure, and then all the punk rock bands from the Fat Records era, Warped Tour, pretty much anybody that played. I went to all the Warped Tours in Detroit from 97 to 2000. So I saw like River Phoenix before they were Phoenix TX and all those bands that were Blink-182. Crowd surfing from the very back all the way to the front. I mean, stuff I would never do now. Like,
it sounds so painful. Like at my age, it definitely feels painful just thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we go from there, and you said you started recording music, and I think that's the interesting part, is that you started recording music, at an early age. So you were recording and capturing sound like, so in the pre-digital era.
Mhm.
So I
Well,
mean, what does that look like logistically? As far as, do you just start off with like 4 tracks and kind of move up from there, or?
yeah, I kind of skipped the whole cassette tape 4-track, 8-track.
Okay.
And I basically just used my dad's PA and ran RCA out into a stereo into my computer.
Okay.
So I had one channel, and I couldn't overdub. It was just, you get one take and that's it. Until I found that there were other sound cards that would support more than one channel, like Sound Blaster Pro 16. And then they started making actual sound cards that you could record with. Crazy to talk about. So that's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving forward from that, like I did a lot of you just use mixers and get the analog take, like you're miking up your live kit, and then boom, record, and that's what you got. And I idolize people like Rick Rubin and Terry Date. I could record bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit and the Deftones, and guys just trying to capture those tones.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny too, because like going that far back in digital, and I know it's not really, like, to me it doesn't seem like far back, but I have to say it's far back because it's like 2020 now. But it seems like yesterday. I remember going over to a buddy of mine's house, and he had like a digital 4-track recorder that I don't even think it recorded to an SD card. I think it was like, I wish I remember what it was called, but it was just like it was like like half the size of a cell phone almost, and he had to buy a special adapter in order to plug it into his computer. It was like a Windows 98 computer.
Man, was it a zip disk?
It wasn't a zip disk, but I had one of those. I might still have it in my garage somewhere. But me and my friends used to just trade MP3s with those, because you could fit so many of them on a zip disk without having to burn a CD. But yeah, I remember us recording on that, and I actually really wish my co-host was here, because he's an audio engineer, and he could describe this stuff a lot better than I can. But all I would do is just sing, and but he said, kind of like what you were saying. He's like, yeah, whenever you sing it, like, don't screw up. We can't go in and fix it, like, or anything like that. You just have to do the best you can. So you started recording bands basically for free out of where, like out of your basement, or?
Yep. Yeah, I moved to Bloomington, Indiana, right after I graduated high school, to stay with my friend Clint. And they were all in college, and I was just there to record and learn. So yeah, I reached out to all the bands that I could find and just offered to record them for free. So I got all my experience with just using bands.
That's cool. And then if a band goes on to do well or something, you've got that recommendation kind of in the pocket there.
It always works that way, right?
Yep. So at what point, and I assume this is once you started recording, that this is what you just wanted to do as your full-time job?
Yeah. I didn't even take my SATs in high school. I just knew that I wanted to record bands, and that's what I did. So I just started that way. I figured the best experience would just be to just work with them directly. So I started that way. I did end up going to the recording workshop in Chillicothe, Ohio in 2001 for their 5-week course. That place is awesome. I highly recommend that to anyone who wants to do audio engineering and don't want to go to engineering school. Because I honestly think that if you are going to invest your time and money, I would just go try to intern at a studio, because your experience is going to come from hands-on, not from class.
No, that's good. That's basically what my buddy ended up doing. Very similar story as far as he just started doing it, and then learning where he could and that sort of thing. So now, were you playing in bands during this time?
So I started playing in that band when I was like 17 years old, and I kept playing in bands pretty much. Always been trying to create something, regardless of the times or how difficult it is. Just feel like I have to. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went through. Man, I've been in so many different bands, but the one when I moved to Indianapolis, a band called Spicoli. They were a really awesome band that was doing pretty well. I had recorded 3 songs for them for free in Bloomington, and I had just moved up there, and they needed somebody else to play in their band, and so I joined them, and that was the best way to be introduced to anybody that I met in Indianapolis. I could ask for.
Yeah.
So I met a lot of bands and got to record a lot of people. I'm really thankful for all those opportunities.
I know you made a list, but I only got about halfway through it. You made a list on Facebook the other day of some of your favorite people that you've recorded. What are some of your favorite recording experiences, like bands that you've recorded? And I'm going to preface that with saying it doesn't mean that any that you don't mention are shit, or that, you know.
So some of the experiences, trying to think here. There was a band that came in. They're not even on that list, and I can't remember the name. They had a couple of guys that were both in music school.
Okay.
And they were trying to tune drums to their guitar strings. And one of the guys was talking about how he had perfect pitch. He could call out perfect pitch on anything, and wasn't trying to brag about it. He was just saying he is known for this in his class. So
yeah.
Like, okay, let's test it. And so we literally got a guitar out and would sit there with him facing the other direction, and we would tune it, and we would detune it and put it in weird places, and he got it right every time. That blew my mind.
That's crazy.
There was a band that I recorded called About the Fire, and these guys were Indianapolis punk rock hardcore legends. They had a huge following. And we did group vocals one day, and the way I do those is usually with maybe 4 or 5 people, and we just put up a mic in the room about 10 feet away, duplicate that, triple it, whatever you need to do to make it sound like a football team, right?
Yeah.
About the Fire rolls in with 36 people, and
oh my goodness,
we line the entire studio and control room with everybody, and and had to sit there and conduct it with like a couple pairs of headphones and get everybody on time. That was the most challenging and probably rewarding experience in my recording career, was that moment.
That's awesome.
That was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the most guys I ever got for a gang vocal was like 6 dudes. And I think they ended up actually recording it like 3 or 4, or doubling it, tripling it or something to make it sound like there were more people in the room.
What you do.
Yep, absolutely. So to move back over to Trenches for a minute. So Jimmy asked you to join the band. So he was already basically like, was you just doing something? Because I guess he was just doing something as kind of just something to do, but not like wanting to do something like full time.
Well, it was like he wanted to keep making music, and we both, like, I had a different band at that time called An Apparatus that I was highly committed to, and he was trying to work on his. I mean, for the whole reason why he left Face Today was for his to just focus on his marriage. So we were both busy. We both knew we had other stuff going on. So it wasn't necessarily a goal to make it a full-time thing or anything more than just kind of a studio project. So that's kind of where we started, and it kind of went from there. It just had grown a little bit in our focus, and we got other members to like fill the spots to actually like play as a full band, and started doing that too.
That's cool. Yeah, that was a very different record for Solid State. Was the Solid State deal just because of Jimmy's involvement or something contractual, or was it like a Solid State like reached out or something like that? Or I know he was doing A&R for Solid State for a while, but anyway, yeah, just basically how did the solid state deal come to be?
Well, we did have more than one. We didn't just go with them right away because we honestly didn't want to do that immediately right off the bat, just because Jimmy's involvement is kind of like a obvious reason right there.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, they did offer a really nice deal, and it was a label that I've always followed since I was a youngster myself. So being a part of something with bands like Norma Jean and Zayo and Under Oath, A Living Sacrifice, like that's like heart, dude.
That's where it's at. Yeah, absolutely. But no, it was definitely a great addition. I was actually talking to Shane Oshner from Hands the other night, who they also played like a post metal kind of sound, and I remember I was talking about how like it was basically them. There was another band called A Hope for Home that came a little bit later, and Trenches were like literally the only bands that were playing that style, like in that circle. You know what I mean? And so I always, and it's so funny because I ended up booking these interviews with all three bands within like, I think a week or two of each other. And I was like, oh man, I'm in like this weird, I guess I'm going through like a post metal phase, this month or something. But the thing that I thought was the most interesting about the Trenches sound was that, to call it just post metal is kind of a little bit of a disservice, because there's a lot of different things kind of going on that record, and definitely drew a lot of different influences. But I just remember as a fan, when the record came out, I remember I was like super stoked and like loved the record, was telling everybody about it. And then I basically just never heard anything about the band again for the next couple of, because as far as I know, I don't think that there was like a lot of shows played.
Right. There weren't.
Yeah. I think you guys were on Cornerstone. Trying to remember what year that was. So before Cornerstone disappeared.
2008, I think.
2008. That makes sense.
Yeah, it was 2008 because I had just moved to Nashville.
Okay.
Yep.
And so like with all of that, was it just like one of those, we had kind of wanted it to be kind of a studio thing and now we're done? Or was it just kind of an accumulation of of things?
Looking back, I can't honestly place my finger on one solid thing. We started working on the band, and then Jimmy had to move to Nashville for his job, working for Solid State. And then I followed him, and I was there, and basically we left our drummer and bass player back in Indianapolis, and we were going to try to just work on playing shows and rehearsing. And things just kind of fell apart after a while, I think, from the distance. And Jimmy didn't end up staying in Nashville either, and I did. I stayed for 11 years. And so that was tough too. After everybody was so far apart at that point, getting together was pretty scarce. And I think it was around 2013, Jimmy had gotten back, and we were saying, okay, well, let's really try to finish this next album and do it. It's like, okay. Because I had already accumulated about 6 songs by 2010. And then in 2013, I recorded and wrote 3 more. And in 2015, 2 more after that. So that's when it finished itself up. And we got all the guitars and bass done in 2015. So yeah, it's been 5 years. And we just finally threw on some more guitars to finish up the album. That's all done. And the vocals are almost completely done. And now we're dealing with a different issue.
Yeah.
Before we put the whole album out under our name.
Well, there was that record is that's the one that was crowdfunded, wasn't it?
Yes.
The Indiegogo.
Unfortunately, yes, that was crowdfunded, and they're still waiting for their record. So we are still delivering on our promises, and no one is happy about how this has gone down. And I can't say I'm sorry enough to everybody that donated so long ago and have been waiting.
Yeah, I guess it's like what, about seven years or so now.
Yeah, it's been 7 years, and we are definitely trying to come through with something solid for everybody.
Sure. I get it though. I mean, because back then that was the way kind of ever, like, it kind of seemed that's kind of where the industry was going, as far as like, if you have the fans that'll support it, go ahead and do it. But there's so many unseen factors too that go into a lot of that stuff.
In retrospect, I don't think I would do the same thing again. I would just make sure you got everything in a row. It's not going to be anything standing in your way, pandemic, legal things, unforeseen forces of nature.
Right. Well, so, obviously, the elephant in the room is that there's a kind of a situation going down about the band's name, as far as there's another band out there that I guess is also called Trenches.
That's correct. Yes, there is another band that is going by the name Trenches. And I don't want anything. I don't want anybody to send them messages or be mean to them or anything like that. That isn't what any of this is about. I'm just kind of disappointed that they didn't Google our name before they chose it. I don't know. I don't even know how it happened. If you're trying to pursue that path professionally. Because I found so many roadblocks trying to find any of my band's names, just like trying to be unique, and you really try to dig, because you want to try to get something that isn't going to be taken later too. You want to try to make a brand name association and build on it. And so, that it's a gut wrencher, man, thinking that it's possible. But then you see it happen, like it did with Lady Antebellum in the Lady A case, So in this case, we're the Lady A,
Right? Yeah.
and we gotta protect our legacy. So I'm not really going to speak too much more.
Yeah, no, you're good
beyond that, but we are definitely taking our steps to protect it. So,
well, I hope you get it too, because that's one of those things where I would hate to pull up a Spotify or something like that and not be getting the band that I thought that I pulled up. That sort of thing happens all the time too. I'll get notification. I think Norma Jean gets it the worst, where like they always mix their stuff with like country singer. Like there was a country singer named Norma Jean, so it'll be all like, "There's a new single" or whatever, and you'll pull it up and be like, "Well, that's a different direction." Yeah. But so you've got this record coming out. I know you haven't thrown an exact date on it yet, but so vocals are basically almost. So we've basically got a new record, mostly.
Yes, essentially, yeah.
Okay.
It will be out as soon as it's possible. As soon as it is done and mixed, it will be out digitally.
Okay.
And the vinyl will follow. Basically 2 or 3 months after that at this point, because of all of the back ordering. I'm sure if you've tried to order anything in the last couple months, you may have hit some roadblocks.
Yes.
It carries over into everything, including vinyl products and wax and things that we could not foresee. So yes, there are some roadblocks, but the end of the line is literally we're putting our blood, sweat, and tears into just getting this thing done so that we can get something solid out again. And this won't be the end of it either. We've already got some new material cooking from practicing. So we're going to put out. I'll tell you right now, we're definitely going to put out a EP like soon after Reckoner is out again.
Okay,
we'll just do that without announcement. So
that's cool.
Be on the lookout for that too.
That's exciting. So we've got the potential here soon to have almost double the, at least 1.5 more amount of material than we had all that time before. So that's exciting. Sure. And I think I think the coolest thing too is that the first record came out such a while back, and yet here we are in 2020, and like you just drop like a hint that like, hey, we're really trying to like actually do this, and everybody comes out in droves for it. Like that's got to be like gratifying.
It's humbling. and it is awesome to see the support, especially after the ringer we've put them all through. Yeah, we really do appreciate it, and we really hope to come out swinging as soon as it's safe to play shows again. And I assure you that we're putting our heart and soul into that as well. I don't want to do a single one until we've got all the projection video for an entire reel of the show, and lights and some other secrets. So it should be pretty fun when we do start playing live again.
That does, yeah, definitely. Well, it'll be one of the best things to come out of a pandemic. Is, you know, yeah, we had a pandemic and it was terrible and we all lived horribly for a long time. But hey, we got Trenches back, so well, there's something to pull from that.
I don't know if you've been paying attention to other stuff. There's so many of these bands that I listen to from the 90s that are coming back through, and the 2000s. I got my favorite Hum that are coming back. They got a new album out.
Oh my god, dude, that Hum record is incredible.
Yeah, man, it's so good. They're one of the biggest influences for me personally, and even just playing guitar. The first song I learned was "Come As You Are." The second one was "Stars."
Nice.
So it's like it's great to see them doing it again. Hopes Fall's new record is amazing.
Oh yeah.
Misery Signal's new record is amazing. Just classics coming back, man. I love it.
Were you planning on going to Furnace Fest if it would have happened?
I haven't been to a festival since Warped Tour.
Wow.
I just haven't gone, man. I don't know. I lived an hour and a half away from Bonnaroo. I never went. I'm not like claustrophobic when it comes to that sort of thing, but I guess there's something about just being near like a center of a would-be apocalypse. It just freaks me out. I don't know.
Sure. Well, I mean, they definitely ended up postponing it, I think, until 2021. But it was for the ages, man. Like just having Hopes Fall. I think it was some of my favorite bands was like Hopes Fall, Zao, Living Sacrifice, Shai Hulud.
Wow.
They had everybody. Converge. Like literally everybody that I grew up listening to is basically going to be on this festival. And like some of the bands were like reuniting just for the festival.
Shai Hulud, I didn't know they were doing stuff again. That's really awesome.
Yeah. They're probably not music. I actually talked to Matt Fox a couple of months ago, and I even asked him, I was like, you know, why does it always take so long between like records and stuff? Like I always think you guys are gone and then you drop something. And he basically just flat out was like, yeah, it just takes a lot of effort and I'm super lazy. And I was like, all right, well, cool. You know, I'm into that. But yeah, they were going to play, and Beloved reunited for Furnace Fest. And I think they ended up just releasing a cover song, but there were just some of the greatest bands that I was a fan of were all going to be at this festival. And then I think as soon as COVID hit, I was like, oh no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And they held out for a really, really long time, but eventually I had to get the ticket refund and the hotel book refund and all that stuff. But yeah, that was going to be cool, but I definitely look forward to it next year. But speaking of stuff having to do with Converge, that's kind of a stretch. You're going to be doing something with Kurt Ballou soon.
Oh wow, you did your homework.
I did.
Yeah,
it just popped up on my feed, man. I didn't.
So yeah, the drummer for Trenches also plays in a band called Druid, and they are awesome. If you haven't checked them out, check them out. It's doomy sludge experimental. It's very good. They're a talented 3-piece. They got the approval to have their record mixed by Kurt Ballou. And so the drums are being recorded by their good friend Nico, and I am doing the guitars and bass.
Nice.
And Kurt Ballou not only is in my favorite hardcore band of all time, one of the best guitar players in the world, and my favorite producer in all of music. So having the opportunity to work with him on their album is a humbling honor, and I've been waiting for this moment for all my life.
I bet. So this is what it was all leading up to, huh?
That's right, man.
That's so awesome. Well, that's cool.
Definitely a huge influence in my career in recording and just music in general.
That's awesome. Well, man, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to talk. This is cool. This is all information that I did not know prior to, because like I said, I heard the Trenches record, loved it, never really heard anything else after that, but I was also really bad about following bands until I started like doing it on a podcast. So but no, that's really cool, and can't wait for the new record, and definitely can't just can't wait to see what the future has. It's looking pretty exciting, as long as we can all finally start going outdoors again.
Heck yeah, man. I just can't wait for it to be safe to do stuff again and get out there and get live. And just for all the listeners right now, the crickets are because I'm standing outside smoking a cigarette.
It's all good.
Not for effect.
Right. You're like, dude, here's the real secret stuff right here, okay? Got to get the crickets chirping in the background. And that was my conversation with Joel from Trenches. I hope you guys got a lot of the info that you've been waiting for such a long time about this new album, Reckoner. The band actually has a new song off of Reckoner available on their Facebook page. We'll have a link in the show notes to that. It's really awesome. I've heard it. Jimmy Ryan sounds awesome, as per usual. So yeah, this was a really fun chat, just to kind of get a little bit of an idea of what's going on with Trenches. It's been a very long time, and Joel was kind enough to spend some time with me to talk all of it over. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that. If you guys are enjoying the Discuss Metal podcast, please let us know. Send us an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. You can always tweet at us at Discuss Metal. You can follow us on Facebook under Discography Discussion. Make sure to join the Discography Discussion official group. If there's somebody cool that you know that you think that we should interview on Discuss Metal, definitely let us know as well. And yeah, so just keep your eyes peeled here, guys. There's going to be a lot more Discuss Metal to come.
This has been the Discuss Metal podcast with Joel Lauver of Trenches. Presented by discussmetal.com.